Secondary Literacy Focus of the Month in Action. For the month of January, we will be focusing on writing connected to text. The State Board of Education has adopted a vision and mission. Our vision is to create a world-class educational system that gives students the knowledge and skills to be successful in college and the workforce and to flourish as parents and citizens. Our mission is to provide leadership through the development of policy and accountability systems so that all students are prepared to compete in the global community. Our 5-year strategic plan for 2016 through 2021 is as follows. All students proficient and showing growth in all assessed areas. Every student graduates high school and is ready for college and career. Every child has access to a high-quality early childhood program. Every school has effective teachers and leaders. Every community effectively using a world-class data system to improve student outcomes, and every school and district rated C or higher. Our session goals are as follows. Define writing connected to text, discuss how it should be taught and what students need to learn, and explore ideas for writing connected to text activities. Defining writing connected to text. Writing connected to text refers to any writing activity where the student has to directly refer to and cite the text in response to the writing prompt or task. According to the Teaching Reading Sourcebook, readers are assisted in forming their thoughts about a passage or text by communicating their ideas and opinions in writing. Responding to text through writing boosts reading comprehension and allows students to go deeper into the text's meaning, style, and structure. Written responses can improve students' interaction with all types of text before the actual reading, during the passage, and after reading the text. How should it be taught? There should be explicit, systematic instruction using the gradual release model. It should directly be tied to a text. It should be focused to reinforce comprehension skills. It should be included in a daily instructional routine and may be tied into any content area. Small group instruction included for increased effectiveness. This may be done as part of a teacher-led center also. What students need to learn. Students need to learn how to directly reference the text to find evidence and supporting details. Students also need to learn how and when to use reference phrases to show they are citing from the text. Examples would include in paragraph 2, or the author states, according to the text, or at the end of the passage. Writing connected to text activities. Note-taking. When reading a complex text, it is imperative that students are equipped with strategies to gather and synthesize important information. By having multiple note-taking strategies at hand, students will be armed with the means of using this information to create summaries and/or essays. The 3-2-1 strategy. With this strategy, students list the following: 3 things they found out, 2 interesting or unusual things, and then 1 question they still have. With the note-taking grid, students read a text or view a video and record information in boxes. Teachers can determine stopping points and allow students to meet and discuss information. Students can then fill in new information on their note-taking grid. Three column notes. While reading about a specific topic, students arrange information that explains 3 different characteristics about the overall topic under specific headings. The notes found can be used to develop a multi-paragraph paper. It can be flexible based on the assignment. Ideas for assessment with this strategy. Students can create a summary, they can create an analytical essay, or a rubric can be used to score their writing. The next strategy is the raft strategy. Students demonstrate their understanding of a text by creating a new product in which they take on a role and write for a specific audience. Raft offers flexibility and limitless opportunities for creativity. Raft is a writing strategy that can be used in all content areas. It offers students a choice in their writing assignment. It employs writing to learn activities to enhance understanding of informational text. It encourages creative thinking, and it motivates students to reflect in unusual ways about concepts they have read. The acronym RAFT stands for Role. In developing the final product, what role will the writer need to take on? Students may ask themselves, who or what are you? Audience. Who should the writer consider as the audience for the final product? A student may ask themselves, who are you addressing? Format. What layout is the best way for the student to demonstrate an in-depth understanding of the topic? They may do this in the form of a letter, diary, memo, brochure, or speech. Topic. The when, who, or what that will be the focus of the final product. Students may ask themselves, what will you write about? Why? On the next slide, you will see an example of what a raft language arts project would look like. Ideas for assessing an assignment using the raft strategy. You may use a rubric to grade students' writing. Students may have a presentation that they present, or students may write a reflection on the process of using this strategy. The last strategy we're going to discuss is written discussion or conversation. Written discussion is conducted by groups of 3 or more. With this, students begin by reading the text. Students then silently write their thoughts for 2 minutes. Next, the students pass their papers to the right and respond to the thoughts, questions, and or feelings of the person whose name is at the top of the paper. After 2 minutes, students pass their papers to the right again and repeat. When everyone has his or her paper back, culminate with a whole class discussion. Each group of students share 1 or 2 highlights of the written discussion. This can be modified into a written conversation by assigning partner groups to respond to each other in one round. Ideas for assessing this strategy. You may want to use a group summary or individual reflections. Or you can have a whole group discussion where everyone gets to share out. Students may also be given an exit slip to assess their understanding. On this slide, you will see several resources that can be used to help with writing connected to text. You will find contact information on this slide. You may contact myself, Christy Hatton. I am a professional development coordinator and literacy coach, and my email is christy.hadden@mdek12.org, or Leanne Cheeseman, one of our regional literacy coordinators. Her email, lcheeseman@mdek12.org. Hello, my name is Christy Hadden, and I am a professional development coordinator and literacy coach with the Mississippi Department of Education. In this lesson, I will be demonstrating using the written discussion conversation strategy. You will see 7th grade students reading an excerpt from the story Rikki Tikki Tavi. We will first discuss the reading skill of inferencing. Students will learn how to take what they see in the text or read in the text and what they already know to draw a conclusion. After that, each student will be provided a sheet of paper to record on. I will explain to the students the procedures for the strategy. I will then give each student a question related to the story and focusing on the skill of inferencing. Students in each group will have 2 minutes to write in response to the question their group is given. Students must continuously write until time is up. Once the time is up, student will pass their paper to the person on the right. I will then set the timer again for 2 minutes. Students will read what their classmates wrote and respond. This process will continue until each student receives their original paper back. After all students have responded, we will enter a class discussion, sharing a few of the written conversations aloud. All right, good morning. Good morning. All right, so y'all ready to start? Yes, ma'am. Okay. How many of you all like to talk? All right, okay. All right, how many of you all like to talk when you're not supposed to? Like to talk to your friends, discuss what's going on, what happened last night, what happened at school, what happened over the weekend? Good. And then what happens when you talk in class, especially when the teacher's going over something, but you want to talk to your friend? What happens?
She's going to be a warning. If not, if you don't follow the warning, she'll go ahead on with the directional consequences.
Oh, right. Direction of consequences. That means, in other words, break it down for a common person like me, you'll get in what? Trouble. How many of you would love to be able to talk to your friends and not have to worry in class and not have to worry about getting in trouble? I would. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to practice a strategy in writing called written conversation and discussion. What is it called?
Written conversation and discussion.
Written conversation and discussion. That's what we're going to do today. It's going to give you a chance to talk to your friends about your lesson for today, about a text that we're going to read, and you're going to get to write to them, write notes to them, and they're going to get to respond and write notes back to you. Does that sound like a good thing? Does it sound fun?
Yes.
All right, but before we get into that, let's talk about what we're going to learn today, because writing is not the only thing that we're going to do today. We have several standards that we're going to talk about today. How many of you know about our college and career readiness standards? Heard of it? Standards. Nobody? Just you? Okay, well, we're going to talk about it. These right here are the standards that you have to learn in 7th grade. By the end of 7th grade, we hope that you know how to do all of these things right here. And today, we have, how many standards do you see that we're going to talk about?
3.
3 standards. All right, we have a reading standard that we're going to talk about. We have a writing standard that we're going to talk about. And then we have a speaking and listening standard that we're going to talk about as well. With our reading standard, it says cite several pieces of textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. And the key word that I want you to pay attention to in this standard is inferences. What's the key word? Inferences. What is this standard saying to you? All it's saying is that we're going to read this story today, okay? And in this, after we read this story, there are going to be some questions that we want to write about and discuss and answer amongst each other with our friends and as a class. Now, the answers to these questions are where? In the story, but it may not be right there, word for word. Sometimes we have to make, what's this word? Inferences. That's when we take what we know, the knowledge that we have. How many of you have a lot of knowledge? Know a lot about everything? Yeah, you're teenagers. Teenagers know everything about everything. And us adults, we know nothing. So you think, right? But you're going to take what you know along with what you read in this text, because the answers are here. But you might have to just kind of draw what they call a conclusion by what you know, what you're reading, and then you make an inference in order to answer the question. Think you can do that? So we're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth. Then our writing standard says we're going to introduce claims. We're going to acknowledge alternate or opposing claims and organize the reasons and evidence logically. That's a lot, isn't it? Know what that's saying? All that is saying is that when you get ready to answer these questions, you're going to kind of use your inferencing skills, your opinion, and write what you think the answer is to this. Then you're going to pass it to your friends. Your friends are either going to read what you said and be like, oh, I don't agree with that. You know why I don't agree with that? Because when I read it, I thought about this, this, and this. They have an opposing view, right? Or they can read that same question and they can write what they think and give it back to you. Give you their opinion, tell you what's on their mind, right? How many of you have friends like that want to tell you what's on their mind? Okay. So that's what we're going to do here. And it says we're going to use reasons and evidence. Where's the evidence going to come from? The text, what you're reading. That's where your evidence is going to come from. And then our last one, speaking and listening. It says we're going to acknowledge new information expressed by others and when warranted, modify their own views. What does that mean? We're going to have a discussion. He's not going to think like he is. She's not going to necessarily think what she thinks, but we're going to talk about it, okay? She's going to say how she feels. She might say how she feels, and then you might say something to come and change everybody's mind, okay? But we're going to discuss our answers, okay? So everybody understand what we're going to do today? How many standards are we working on today? 3 standards. The first one, we're going to talk about what? What's this word? Inferences. And we kind of already said is when you what? Can anybody tell me what we said inferencing is? When you take what?
When you take what you know and what the text gives you.
What you know and what the text gives you, and you come up with an answer or an idea. Right here on this anchor chart. This anchor chart says making inferences. All it is what? Let's read this together. Putting the pieces together. It's like a puzzle. Like puzzle pieces. The evidence from the text is a piece. What you know, your knowledge about the subject is a piece. And you put that together to form your puzzle. So that's what making an inference is. You take the clues in the text, what you know, questions that you might have, and then you make an inference. When you make an inference, you go beyond the author's words. Because remember, sometimes the author doesn't say it word for word. Sometimes he leaves room in there for you to think for yourself and kind of figure out what it is he was trying to say, kind of like a detective, okay? When do we infer or when do we make an inference? When it's not said word for word in a text. Very good. So we're going to read a story today called Ricky Tikki Tavi. It's about a mongoose and a snake, a cobra. How many of you have ever heard of a mongoose before? All right, very good. It's a brown furry animal that looks between like a prairie dog and a cat, okay? And so this is what we're going to learn about today. Mongoose it's an enemy to a snake, all right? Most of the times we think the snake as the predator, right? He preys on other animals. Well, many people use mongoose to chase snakes away. And so this is about a battle between this mongoose and this snake. Does it sound exciting? Yeah. All right, so we're going to read this. And then as we're reading this, we're going to come back and we're going to look at these questions that we have up here about the story. Now, the answers are in the story, but also you're going to have to make, what did we talk about? Inferences. We're going to have to take what's here, what we know, and put it together in order to kind of explain our answer to these questions. Think we can do that? All right, so I want you to kind of look at these questions as you're reading this story, and we're going to come back to them and discuss them, okay? So we're going to give you about, it's 2 pages. This is not the whole story. These are the first 2 pages of the story. We're going to kind of do a close read of just the first 2 pages of this story, okay? And those questions are coming from the first 2 pages of this story. So you don't have to read the whole entire story today. Isn't that good? Because it's a long story. So I'm going to give you about maybe 5 to 6 minutes to read this story. And then we're going to come back and we're going to look at our questions and talk about making some inferences to answer these questions. Everybody got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. I'm going to pass these stories out to you. Now that we've read this story, how many of you enjoyed the little piece that you got to read today? Was it interesting to you? All right. How many of you would like to read the rest of it? It's a great story. What did you say? You like to read the rest of the book? It's a great story. So, we've read this, and now we want to look at some of our questions that we're going to talk about today, or that we're going to write about today and talk to with our friends and discuss. So as we were reading, we know that this story is about a what?
Mongoose.
About a mongoose. Were there any other characters within the story? There was a snake. Who else? The wobblers. The wobblers were who? They were birds. Anybody else within the story? Okay, the mother, the father, and the son. And it did mention a muskrat in the beginning, right? But was the muskrat in this particular part of the story? No, so we can infer that from the beginning or the introduction that later he probably will come when? Later on in the story, because we didn't read about the muskrat in this part, but the beginning of it told us that he's somewhere in there, so we can infer that it'll come later in the story. All right, so good. That lets me know you read it because you know some of the main players in the story. So, we're going to look at these questions. We have how many questions? 4 questions that we're going to be looking at and answering today. All right, and we know, just like we did then about the muskrat, some of the answers we're going to have to make what? Inferences to come up with our answers. Take what we know, what we read in the text, and use it to come up with our inference or draw a conclusion. So question 1. Who remembers reading this within the story? It's the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose because he is eaten up from nose to tail with what? Curiosity. The motto of all the mongoose family is what? Run and find out. That means they are very what? Curious. What's another word what's a synonym for curious?
Anxious.
Okay, anxious. What else? I heard someone say a good one.
Right.
I heard it. What is it? Nosy. They're kind of nosy. They just want to know everything. So that's a synonym for curious. All right. And Ricky Tikki Tavi was a true mongoose. That means he was really what? Nosy. Based on what you've read in this motto, based on what you've read, is this motto valid regarding Ricky Tikki Tavi? And then explain why or why not. So then, do you remember what you read about Ricky Tikki Tavi?
Yes.
All right. What were some of the things that he was doing? Who can tell me something that he was doing within the story? Yes. Okay, every time he was laying in the bed, but every little noise he heard, what did he have to do? Go see what it was. He had to be what? Nosy, or his curiosity was eating him up. What else did he do?
He went to the barn and he was looking, he would ask questions to the birds about what had what it said.
Okay, he saw the birds and saw that they were looking sad, and so he started asking them questions, trying to find out, why are you sad? So again, he was very what? Not in that case, we wouldn't say nosy. We would say he was kind of what? Curious. So think about that. We think about the evidence from the text and then what we know and try to figure out, is that a good model for a mongoose to to say that he was very curious, that he liked to run and find out? Hold that in, because you're going to write about it. I hear yes. Anybody say no? I heard a lot of yeses. But remember, the end of this question says what? Explain why or why not. So you're going to get a chance to explain to your friends why you think that that's a good model for Ricky Tikki Tavi based on the evidence from the text. And we heard some of our classmates give some evidence that he was curious, right? All right, number 2 says the mother is apprehensive about Ricky Tikki Tavi sleeping with the little boy at night because she worries he will bite her child. Apprehensive. That's a big word, isn't it? Have any of you ever heard that word before? Okay, you've heard it before. What does apprehensive mean? What other word could you use to break that down to someone who's never heard it before? What's a synonym?
Worried.
Worried. Okay, very good. Worried is a good synonym for apprehensive. So we could say the mother is what? Worried about Ricky Tikki Tavi sleeping with the little boy at night because she worries he will bite her child. So worried. She was a little worried. She was a little scared. So based on how the mongoose has interacted with the boy so far, think about from the text, how did he interact with the little boy? What did he do to the little boy? Was he mean to the little boy? Was he trying to bite him or do anything to him? No. Think about what you know from the text and then your own thoughts, and tell me, do you think the mother is right to be afraid that Ricky Tikki Tavi will harm her son? Explain why or why not. So, everybody understand that question? All right, tell your friends why. How many of you think she is right to be worried? How many of you think she has no worries? All right, explain to your friends, explain to me why you feel she has no worries. All right, or she should not be worried. Number 3, nag is initially described to Ricky Tikki Tavi through the conversation with the Wobblers because they're telling him what happened to their what? To their child, what Nag did to, and who is Nag? He's the cobra. So they're telling him, if they were telling you about what this snake did to their child, how would you feel? Huh? What would you think about the snake? What did you say? He should be put down. Okay, anybody else? I agree, he should be put down, but that's our what? Opinion. You might want to use it. Tell me why. But based on their story and what they told him and their actions, because what did they do when Nag came? What did they do? They kind of got what? Scared. They moved. Why is Ricky Tikki Tavi's introduction to the snake conflicting? Because huh? Eating their babies, okay. So tell me, why was the way that he reacted kind of conflicting? Because you would think they were scared of the snake. He jumped back a little bit, but did he really seem scared? No. All right, so let's talk about that. Let's discuss that. And then number 4, a flood washed Ricky Tikki Tavi away from his family burrow, and then he was found by the little boy and his family who took him to their home, okay? When we ran in the story, before the flood came, where was Ricky Tikki? With who? With his mom and dad. And then this flood came and washed him away. And now he's no longer with them. Think about you. Think about your experiences. What if you were Ricky Tikki Tavi, or you were somewhere with your mom and dad and something happened that made you be away from them or get separated from them, how would you feel? You would what? Want to go back. How would you feel? You would feel sad. What would you do? Try to get back. All right? That's your experiences. But what did Ricky Tikki Tavi do? He stayed. So, I want to make an inference. Why do you think Ricky Tikki Tavi chose to stay and find out more about the house and the family that took him in rather than try to leave and return to his family? Now, that's where this comes in. What you know about yourself. If this was you, you would try to what? Go back to your family. He didn't. From the text, we know that he didn't. So I want to make an inference. Why do you think he decided, hey, I want to stay and stick around with this family instead of I want to go back to my family, okay? So use what you know and what you would do. Use the evidence from the text and come up with an answer. Everybody got it? Yes. All right, so are we ready to talk to our friends about this story? Yes. How many are ready to talk to your friends about this story? Are we going to talk verbally? No. How are we going to talk to our friends? Writing, because our strategy that we're using today is what? Written conversation and discussion. Now, before we start this, there are some rules to this, okay? Rule number 1, when you write, because you're going to have a sheet of paper, I'm going to give each one of you a question. We kind of talked about the question, but everybody is either going to, one person is either going to get question 1, one person is either going to get question 2, one person 3, one person 4. So nobody's going to have the same question, okay? All right? But we've talked about all of the questions. So when you get your question, you're going to have your sheet of paper. You're going to write your name at the top of your sheet of paper, and you're going to have your question. You're going to get 2 minutes to write and respond to whichever question you get, okay? How long will you have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Now, here's the thing. You are going to write so that others can read what you are saying. The reason being, we're going to pass these papers around, and your classmates in your group are going to get a chance to read what you wrote, and they're either going to respond, talk back to you on what you said, or they might want to answer that question in another way to help you see it in another way, okay? So in order for them to do that, they need to be able to read what you wrote. Everybody understand? That's rule number 1. Number 2, how long did I say you will have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. You will write until you're told to stop. It doesn't mean you can write one sentence and say, I'm done. You have to keep writing until I say time is up. What does this say? Don't stop writing. You have to write the full 2 minutes answering your question. Everybody got it? Can you stop? No. Number 3, after I say stop, then we're going to pass your paper to the right. You're going to pass your paper and your question to the person to the right. And then they're going to get 2 minutes to read the question, your response, and then respond back to you. And the whole time they cannot stop what? Writing. All right? We're going to do that again. Once those 2 minutes are over, what do you think we're going to do? Pass it to the right and do it again. And we're going to keep doing it until you get your original paper back, okay? And then we're going to discuss it. Everybody got it? So after the 2 minutes are up, you're going to pass your paper and the what? Question to what? The right. The person who gets it, you have to read the question, read your classmate's response. You can either respond to what they wrote and say, well, no, I don't agree with you because, and remember, think about the text. Or you can answer that question yourself, and then they get to see your view on that question. Everybody got it? So 1 or 2 things. Answer the question yourself or respond to what your classmate wrote. Got it? And we're going to do this for 2 minutes until you get your paper back. Are we ready? Yes. First thing we need to do, take out a sheet of paper. Everybody should have a sheet of paper. All right? Make sure that your name is in the top right-hand corner. Are we ready? Has everybody written their name at the top? All right. I'm going to pass out questions. Remember, everybody will get a different question. You'll either get question 1, 2, 3, or 4. And refer back to the text. Use what you know and respond. Everybody got it?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. All right. We're going to pass it to who? The person on the right. You pass your paper, that's why your name is at the top, and your question to the person on the right. Now, because I am going to give you a minute to read the question and their response, I am going to give you 3 minutes this time, okay? Because you're going to read the question and the response, and then you'll have your time to respond. Everybody ready? Got it? Do you think you need a little bit more time? You're good? All right, how long do you have this time?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. Ready? Has everybody passed their paper to the right?
Yes.
Let's start. All right, now we know that we need to pass it to what?
The right.
To the right. Again, you will have 3 more minutes because you need to read the question, those responses, and then respond on your own. Are we ready?
Yes.
Let's begin. Now that we've done this, let's have a class discussion. Let's go back to one of the questions and see what your responses were and then what your classmates' responses were as they received your paper. So number 1 says, it's the hardest thing in the world to frighten a mongoose because he is eaten up from nose to tail with curiosity. The motto of all mongoose family is what? Run and find out. And Ricky Tikki Tavi was a true mongoose. Based on what you've read, is this motto valid regarding Ricky Tikki Tavi? Explain why or why not. All right, so who had number 1 in your groups? All right, you ready to read your response and your classmates' responses? All right, what was your response to number 1?
Yes, because Ricky Tikki Tavi is very anxious and curious about everything.
Okay, he's very anxious and curious about everything. How did you know this? What from the text kind of let you know that he was anxious and curious about everything?
When everyone was asleep, he was running around the house when he heard noises, trying to figure out what was the noise.
Okay, all right, so that is valid, okay, that he likes to run and find out, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, what did some of your classmates say? Right.
I agree because Ricky Tikki Tavi is very curious and about what was happening everywhere.
Okay, so they pretty much said the same thing as you. He's running around trying to find out what everything is. All right, good deal. All right, who else had this question? Okay, this group. All right, what was your initial response to the question?
I think the motto "run and find out" is valid to Ricky Tikki Tavi because all during the night, every noise he heard, he had to get up and see what it was.
All right, very good. She actually used evidence from the what? Text. From the text. He talked about how he was curious about everything, and I asked you to go back, and you did tell me something from the text. But in her response, she wrote evidence from the text. She talked about how all during the night he had to what? Get up and go see what every noise was, and that's part of our standard, which tells us, you know, to use or show explicit answers from the what? Text. All right, good job. All right, what did some of your classmates say?
I agree because he was doing what the motto was.
Okay, he was doing what the motto was. And what was the motto? Run and find out. And he was, when he heard a noise at night, he would go what? Run to try to find out. All right, who else had this? All right, we'll try one more group. What was your initial or your first response to question number 1?
Yes, this motto is valid regarding to Ricky Tiki Tavi because in the story he runs all over the place at night to see where every noise is going on.
All right, again, she cited evidence from the what? Text. And we all keep going back to at night when he couldn't rest or stay in the bed. He heard a noise, he had to get up. But what else from the story? What else was he doing from the story that lets you know he was curious? What else was he doing from the story?
Like when the people were sad, he had to go find out why were they sad.
Okay, when the warblers or the birds were sad, he went and asked questions to find out why were they sad. There was some other things that took place in the story. Remember when he first got there and they fed him, he was running around sitting in everybody's lap. He burned his nose what? On the man's cigar because he was being very what? Curious. So in the story we can find many pieces of evidence to show that he was really, really curious and that's a good model for him to run and find out because that's what he did, right? Great job. Great job with the written conversation. You can have conversations with your friends without talking while the teacher is talking and getting in trouble by doing what? Writing about it, writing a note. And the thing about this is we were tying it to what? To the text, to our story. Good writing is really good, especially when we're learning as we're doing it. How many of you like that strategy? How many of you found that strategy fun? You get to see what your friends are thinking. Your friends get to see what you are thinking. And then you're all learning about the text. So this is a good strategy, written conversation, and then we discussed it. And we were able to hear what other people were thinking. We would discuss the rest of the questions as well and let you all tell what you thought and what your friends thought. All right? So the rules for written discussion. Number 1, make sure that you write so that everybody can what? Read it so they can answer back to you. Number 2, make sure you what? Do not stop writing. How long did we have to write?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. But as we went on, we adjusted because I knew that you needed to read the question and your classmate's response in order to answer what you need to answer. And then number 3, as we're passing the paper, and you did a very good job with this, we did not talk. We just passed to the what? To the right. So, how many of you like this? Was there anything about it that you did not like? Okay. Is there any way that we can adjust it? Do you think there need to be time adjustments? Or do you think 2 to 3 minutes was enough time? Was it, you got to write what you needed to write? All right, very good. So to wrap this up again, we talked about making what? And what is making inferences? What do you do when you make an inference? What are you using?
What you already know of clues in the text.
Okay, the evidence from the text, clues from the text, and what you already know to come up with what is not what? Said by the what? Author. What you do not see. And then we talked about writing. You gave your opinion. You introduced your claims. You used evidence from the text. And then your friends came back and they either agreed with you or disagreed or and told you why or why not, right? and then we discussed it as a class. We listened and we responded. So good job, okay? Good job. This lesson can be extended by having group members share one highlight or one thread of the conversation. Students can also write or share what worked and what made this strategy difficult. Ask students what could improve the written discussion next time. For assessing, the teacher can join in groups and participate to check for understanding. Because this is a writing to learn process, students should be given points for participation. Also, this is not a strategy that has to be completed in one setting. This can be extended over a period of 2 to 3 days.